Welcome everybody to this edition of the Cemetery Board. Chris Wiles gave me a call. The view from the Attorney General. He'll be a bit late, but we'll go through the agenda, but we'll save the good stuff for him when he gets here. I'm Dan Shapiro. I'm Secretary of State. Cesar Morales is designee as chair.
Paul Ambrose, representing Acting Commissioner Howard Zucker from the Department of Health.
Mr. Malone.
Tony Melillo, counsel to the Cemetery Board.
Joe Ambrose, Associate Accountant, Division of Cemeteries.
Rich Buskius, Senior Accountant, Division of Cemeteries.
Len Breen, Investigator, Division of Cemeteries.
Suzanne Dressel, Administrative Aide, Department of State.
Louis Polishuk, Director, Division of Cemeteries.
Great stuff. Welcome everybody and welcome honored guests. So, let's look at the minutes. Did you have any comments or changes?
Ebola viral disease. It's Ebola virus disease.
Really? Sounds good to me.
At least we can triple check it and make sure that's correct. I meant to check that before I came in.
I could just say Ebola.
You want to say Ebola?
Good, it's referred to as EBD as well.
Hold on.
Yeah, okay. So changed.
So 82727 was not on the list under legislation and regulation. Was it? Should it have been?
82727. Oh, 82727. And the question is?
Should it have been in the list of the items covered in the agenda?
Oh, I see. We had a discussion about it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, sure.
And there's also a reference to mental hygiene law that's kind of not followed up. Something that should be, either that should be out of there or there should be something.
On the legislative report?
I totally missed that. No, we're looking at pending legislation, and we had a discussion. We had a discussion about 82727, which related to
Sole jurisdiction.
clarify that state arms. Did we discuss that?
I don't remember.
I don't think we discussed it. I think it's in the report, but I don't think we discussed it.
Oh, what was it?
So I don't recall that. Do you?
I do not recall a discussion of it. Tony, do you remember? You were talking. You probably remember.
I mean, I think I gave a brief summary of all the bills because it was so short, but I mean, those don't have to be identified.
How about
it's not like action was taken.
How about including without limitation?
Well, it says Mr. Melillo reported on various bills pending.
Yeah, fine.
So I think that sort of means that.
I would take out the phrase mental hygiene law. I think
Yeah,
that's
just
a
strike
phrase.
mental hygiene law. And approach to allow cemeteries to reclaim. Reclaim is sort of a term of art. I think that's used in the industry, right? So reclaiming lots?
Yes.
Yeah, so that, I think that. Hey, Mr. Wiles, so we don't have to hold back on all the good stuff. I'm early, because I wasn't gonna do regulations without you either. Anything else? Great. Did you have anything, Chris?
No, not in a minute.
Neither did I. So with the change, as noted, Ebola and striking the mental hygiene law reference, we're good. Okay. Motion to approve?
Second.
So,
Second.
all in favor, say aye. Aye. 2 seconds, that's great.
Third.
All right. Legislation and regulation, Mr. Melillo.
Okay. Well, let me get to the legislation and
Yep.
work very quickly. There have been some new items introduced. Well, new for this term, they're retreads from last term. I don't know if any more, I sent it out late, but the new items are 7 through 12 on the report that was sent out late yesterday. No action on any of them except number 9. This is a bill that would add new elements to the crime of cemetery desecration, make it a class felony. It's advanced to 3rd reading in the Senate. That's Senate Bill 2207. Okay. All the other bills have just been introduced with no action taken.
All right.
Then we have our regs, our financial regs. I'm pleased to announce that we have a draft that interested parties have agreed to. They have no issue with the language, the latest draft. Now, there is a change from the last draft I sent the board yesterday. It's a small change. So let me get to that section. It's section 200.6, commercial crime insurance coverage. And it's paragraph C of 200.6. We were dealing with the issue of a cap. Because the industry is concerned that right now the language says that the amount of coverage required is $15,000 or 10% of total financial assets. If it was limited to 10% of total financial assets, that could be millions of dollars for some of our large cemeteries of coverage that would be required. That would be very expensive, maybe not even available. So they asked for a cap of $500,000. We wanted some flexibility with the cap, so we inserted the cap. But notwithstanding the cap, there's language there that the division may, at its discretion, order a cemetery to obtain commercial crime coverage in excess of $500,000.
Before you go there, that's twofold. One, it allows for changing times. 20 years from now,
Right.
Insurance requisites are much higher and commensurately affordable. All right, the cemetery division could effectively order without having to go back to rulemaking. But the other piece, of course, is if a cemetery exhibits specific bad tendencies,
Right.
that's noted by the director could order the cemetery to increase its coverage.
Right.
Now, that can't be unbounded discretion, and our partners were concerned about unbounded discretion. I fully understand and concur with that. There has to be some means of limitation, something to keep arbitrary and capricious activities out of the department. So, with that in mind, this language was proper.
Right. So it allows the division at its discretion to order a cemetery to obtain commercial crime coverage in excess of $500,000 if it determines that an increase in coverage is appropriate and that such coverage is readily available in the marketplace. That language you already have in your draft. What we've added is the next sentence. The cemetery subject to such order may file a protest with the cemetery board pursuant to section 200.2B. That's a section of the regs that applies to applications from cemeteries, which gives them a right to challenge an order of the division. And by inserting this language, we're making it clear that an order raising the limit above the $500,000 cap is an order that can be challenged to the board, and also Article 78, which is the next step in the proceeding.
Right. It's a rather formal mechanism and formal language for it, which I think should give comfort to folks who want to make sure that, in fact, the actions of both the division and the board are governed by standards.
And just to be clear, as I said initially, the language states that the amount of coverage required is $15,000 or 10% of total financial assets, whichever is greater, up to a maximum of $500,000. This paragraph allows the board to go above the division to go above the $500,000 limit, but not above the 10% of total financial assets.
Right.
That's a fixed limit that the division can't exceed. It's the $500,000 limit that the division can supersede, and which can be challenged by the cemetery.
The only thing I'd add to that is that the version you guys got also makes it very clear that the division can require a smaller amount of coverage where that's appropriate.
Yes.
That does not have this whole formal process.
No,
attached
because we
to
didn't
it.
think a cemetery would feel aggrieved by such an action.
Right.
Right.
What does commercial crime insurance cover?
Bad acts by people who handle your funds. So it used to be fidelity bonding. The people in the insurance industry tell us that term isn't used anymore. That type of coverage isn't really available. It's moved to this commercial crime coverage. So our reg was out of date. It needed to be updated on that one.
So with respect to, before I fold the board, with respect to next steps, what happens is, should we be comfortable with this and move forward, we'd be submitting it for review and ultimately develop a notice of proposal, which would be placed in the register. I would love to do a consensus rulemaking, but as Louis has pointed out to me, you do that and you get one entity which complains and you got to start from the beginning, so why don't we do a notice of proposal? So I guess that's the way we'll do it, but I would love to have done a consensus.
You have to do half of the statements anyway.
Yeah, of
You only
course.
save like half of them.
Yeah, but it's a lovely statement to make if you get it done. But in any event, that would be the process. It would be, you have a minimum of, once it gets to the register, you have a minimum of 60 days. Is that right, Tony? 60?
I thought it was 45.
45. I think you're right. 45 days before you can take action on it. But that's the process going forward. So, with that in mind, have you folks, reviewed this? Are you?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, everything is good? Okay, so what I'd like to do is, I'll do the motion. I'll just motion for approval to go forward in developing a notice of proposal and placing that in the register when so developed.
So, second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Hooray!
Woohoo!
Wow. Given 10, 15 years, maybe we'll get another reg out. I want to thank, by the way, I want to thank our interested parties, Dave, NYSAC. Pine Lawn was very, very helpful in this too. We got a much better rule than we started with by involving folks. It took time, but it's worth it. Hopefully, the rule will progress smoothly and we'll have something in place that everybody not only can live with, but prosper. Okay, good. That's it. Mr. Polisher.
So I have an add-on to our report,
Okay.
but I'm going to reduce what I was going to say about Pearl River, so that should all add up.
All right.
Paul, yesterday, sent me a link to the CDC's website. They have finally updated their Ebola guidelines. And lest you think that Ebola was the disease in 2014 and 2015 is all about measles, unfortunately, Ebola, even though it has disappeared from the sensationalist press, is very much still out there. And it takes just one person coming back infectious from West Africa to start the whole process rolling again. I had hoped not to be choking. I'd also hoped not to be able to print this out, and I didn't have a chance to, but I've read their guidelines, and I think the CDC pretty much addresses all of the issues that we, and I can't speak for the Department of Health, but I'm guessing they have been concerned about all along. It gives a very detailed, blow-by-blow procedure for what to do with if someone dies of Ebola, and it's step by step. It's very clear. I actually think it answers all of our questions, and we're going to be updating the link on our website to make sure that it links to the new thing. If it doesn't, I'll be happy to send a copy of the link to anybody who's interested. But it's line by line, step by step. No, as far as I can tell, no detail too small to have been omitted. And I think that they got input from funeral directors and state regulators in both the funeral side and the cemetery side. And they clearly listened and addressed many of the things that we were wondering about. I'll highlight only one provision of it because I find it amusing that part of the protective equipment you need for Ebola seems to involve kitty litter. Kitty litter is apparently appropriate if you're transporting remains and there is some leakage. You put kitty litter on it, which I found incredibly amusing. I don't know why. But we'll be linking to that, and I'm feeling much more confident about what would happen. And we'll also reach out to the cemetery, the crematories that we'd identified as being the likely spot for dealing with any Ebola victims and giving them new guidelines.
Good.
Pearl River Cemetery is a really interesting situation. It's not ready for you yet. I'm just going to give it very quickly. It's an existing cemetery in Rockland County that's been operating for years. They are not incorporated, they're not a not-for-profit, they're not a nothing. In 2010, somehow, they managed to incorporate as a for-profit corporation. And nobody caught this, which is causing all sorts of problems for them. They will be coming to you shortly with an application to incorporate as a not-for-profit. We've already spoken to corporations. They're going to have to dissolve and reconstitute. And it's going to be a bit involved. On the other hand, unlike their neighbor at Palisades Cemetery, which recently incorporated, they've been a going concern all along. And it appears to be a well-run cemetery, and they seem to have a good amount of records for at least recent burials. And
Good.
once we straighten this out, they should be able to hit the ground running.
What's the current corporate name?
Pearl River Cemetery, Inc. It's got the word cemetery.
They
in
got
it.
the word cemetery
Nobody
in
caught
as
it.
corporations.
I asked corporations about it. They're not quite sure what happened.
Yeah, for the record, a corporate applicant, an applicant for a corporation, can't have a name which would indicate that it's doing something unlawful. A for-profit can't be a cemetery in this state, so typically corporations, in its review, would catch that and reject the filing. Didn't happen. There's a lot, hundreds of thousands of documents passed through. Sometimes there's an error. This was an error. So, but it's good that they're coming into the fold.
And they have new counsel to replace the guy who filed this thing in the first place.
Yeah,
There was never any intention to operate a
Right.
for-profit cemetery. Their attorney saw this as a simpler way to incorporate.
Okay. All right. Well, we're coming into the fold. That's good news.
The other thing is, we've been getting a lot of calls about resale of graves. People wanting to resell graves, and obviously the Article 15 restricts the resale of graves. We've been handling this so far to encourage cemeteries to consider whether to there's a statutory price to repurchase. If you bought a long time ago, that statutory price is likely to be a fraction of the quote-unquote market price of graves. We've been encouraging both cemeteries and people looking to sell graves to try to negotiate a mutually agreeable price, even if it's somewhere north of the statutory price, so that these graves can be filled up for burial, freed up for burial, and everybody can be happy because there's no obligation of the owner to sell it back to the cemetery at the statutory price. There's only an obligation not to resell it if the statutory price has been offered. So we've been encouraging people to negotiate, but this may be reflective of, and look, this is not new. They've negotiated before, and often with good results. But if this is the beginning of a significant trend, it may be worth considering whether some other approach legislatively would make sense with respect to this. I don't know what that is, but this seems to be a new thing that we're getting a lot of these.
And the issue is that that the value is considerably more than the offering price in the cemetery. The cemeteries you're finding are not interested in negotiating?
Some are, some aren't. Some are under the misconception that they can't offer more than the statutory price.
Well,
We've disabused them of that notion.
Right.
They don't have to, but it often makes sense.
Well,
for them to.
it would make economic sense for them to make market raise and sell them at a profit.
The other thing is there seems to be a misconception out there. There seems to be this notion that surfaces in the popular press every now and then about resale of graves being in excess of the cemetery's list price for sales. That is, in our experience, incredibly rare. I can think of 2 cemeteries where it happens. More likely to be an issue is somebody illegally attempting to resell a grave, undercutting the cemetery.
Okay, well, track it and we'll see what you come up with.
But these calls seem to come in waves. In December, we had about 4 calls about the right of memorialization, which I think which council handled very nicely. Now we have a template to deal with. Now we're getting calls about resales.
Do we have any literature that we hand out in that describing the process?
I don't think we do, and we should.
Maybe that's something we can work on. Put on our website and also hand it over to cemeteries. And you put in a cemetery may above the statutory price to choose to do so, so why don't you show this other version?
Now, of course, there are cemeteries, like, since Pine Lawn's represented here, Pine Lawn pretty much always refuses to repurchase and does allow people to attempt to resell, which is also within their right.
It's up to the cemetery. Pine Lawn has a lot of space.
Presumably, that's why.
All right, very good. Anything else, Louis?
Nope.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, yes, there is, sorry.
Why
These
do I
are
guess
very
these
good
things?
news.
Oh, okay, good news.
We have the green light to replace Suzanne over here. Not that she
With
needs to be
Suzanne?
replaced. No, Suzanne's moonlighting today because we had nobody to take notes, so Suzanne's moonlighting today.
Thank you.
You have the green light to replace her with a secretary position. And we have the green light to open a branch office in Binghamton.
That is good.
Which is a huge thing because driving to the southern tier from any of our existing offices is a long ride. And being able to cover that area with somebody local, both an accountant and an investigator, should mean that we're spending much more time doing substantive work and much less time driving places.
Wonderful, that's great news. It's unusual to hear of some expansion. So
Well, it's not expansion, we're still gonna be down
Same number, I
one
know.
or two people
I
from
know.
were we were 7 years ago, but we're still.
Coverage is better. You're
Yes.
gonna be able to do more. Do more with less. Very good. All right, who's doing vandalism today?
Me.
Okay, you're on.
Okay. So far, we have collected a grand total of $39,689 in vandalism funds. We have granted applications, or you have granted applications totaling just over $549,378. There are about $211,129 in pending applications, although that includes a couple that are going to be put on for today.
Right.
Of those, only two have been for vandalism, $9,295. 17 have been for restoration of dangerous monuments, $300,282, and 3 for abandoned cemeteries, $239,801.
Great stuff.
And I suspect we will see a lot more applications for you in March. There will be a very big stack which you will not be able to see over.
Okay.
Because we're making a real push at the division level to try to clear our backlog of things that, again, we haven't been sitting on them. The cemeteries have been sitting on them, but we've been telling them, and now we're really gonna be telling them, time to fish or get bait, or cut bait.
You want to clear the decks for next fiscal.
Right, exactly.
Very good.
So
Very
that's
good.
what's going on, and I don't know, Mr. Fleming, I do not know if I have an extra copy for you. Oh, I do. Here you go.
Thanks, Louis. All right. Vandalism repair.
Yep.
Amendment orders, we've got 2. Just comments. How are we with these?
We have 2, plus we have some additional ones that need to be re-signed because
Okay.
they had the wrong commissioner pop on them.
All right. Any comments?
Go inside and go vote.
Yep. So, the only thing I'd note is that on Gilboa, the cemeterian placed a notice on each monument and actually got a couple folks to pony up. That was pretty nifty stuff.
Yeah, that was the first. I've never seen that before, and it was pretty effective. Let's
No,
say.
We should
More-
all tell them to do that.
More
You know?
effective than the notice, because people come to visit their loved one and they see the sign, but whereas they may not look at the legal notice to see that their monument is in need of repair.
We should encourage it. You know, where it's practicable, we should encourage that. It's funny that I never thought of it, but I learned something new every day.
I think the wording says repaired or replaced at our option, right?
Yeah, yes.
So that they might not want it to be replaced by something inferior to what they have there now, which may be an incentive to do it
That's true.
themselves.
That's true. I think when folks know, especially in a small cemetery, or, you know, a rural cemetery where people have an attachment to it, I think when they know and they're visiting, they'll take the responsibility on. But a lot of times they never even know that their monuments are falling down. So, okay, that's great. Motion to approve? So moved. Second? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
stuff for you guys to sign.
Oh, yes.
And these are the previous ones to get re-signed, and for next time, Chris, I will make sure that Chet has the Attorney General's middle initial, which I see as myself right here.
Oh, dear. Okay.
Since his friends apparently call him Trad. You don't want to leave out that middle name.
That's true.
All right. Pine Lawn Cemetery.
Ah,
Major renovation. We've got two on. The first one is the water well. The issue with the water well, as I recall, well, actually, why don't you?
there were
cover those?
two issues you guys had with the water well.
Yep.
Number one, they were only coming before you for approval of digging the hole in the ground.
Yep.
And number two, they hadn't given us drawings or schematics to show what the building and driveways and all of that would look like. So we didn't, if the board were willing to approve digging the hole in the ground without them having bids on the second phase.
Mhm.
You didn't know what the second phase would look like, and having a hole in the ground without that wouldn't be very good. We've at least remedied the second defect. The board package has renderings and schematics of what the second phase is going to look like. The Pine Lawn specifically hasn't asked for approval of the second phase, but on their other application, the roadways project, the bids came in at exactly what, or at least one of them came in at exactly below what their budget had been.
Mhm.
And I have no problem recommending approval of the whole thing within a budget.
Yeah, I looked at the schematics and I didn't have a problem.
They
with
gave
it.
us an explanation, which I meant to print out, but got here too late to print out.
Mhm.
But they provided an explanation, which I think I shared with you guys in advance. It didn't make the formal package of why they want to do this. Like, basically, they need to get the hole dug now.
Yes. Now,
I can find, if you like, I can actually find it right now.
I think we talked about that last time.
mhm. Yeah, the,
No, but they gave us a further application, which is that, because of the roadway project, they want to get the hole in the ground before any of the road stuff starts.
right. Paul raised an issue with respect to digging of the well and distance from graves. I think Rosemary answered him that it was in excess.
That was in reference to Villanova.
That was
Yeah,
Villanova, that was something else. No, this well is nowhere near anyone's house.
Okay.
And this isn't drinking water, this is for
Right,
irrigation.
this is
I don't want to
solely
make
for
that clear.
irrigation, that's
Yeah,
right.
solely for irrigation. Yeah, I did take some comfort, by the way. I noticed in the packet that the engineering firm had provided a breakdown of projected costs for the infrastructure and building that was pretty specific. So, I mean, I think there's expert estimates, if you will, within the packet that I hadn't noticed before. So I'm not uncomfortable the cap or a delegation to the division, within the cap. Does anybody have any thoughts about this one?
I'd like to get rid of all this stuff so I don't have to carry it around.
All right. Well, let's get.
Do you think we could
Very
approve it?
practical.
Yeah. Why don't we go ahead with respect to the water well major renovation? Perhaps a motion to approve delegating to the division.
I don't think you have to delegate anything
Next to
to
motion
us.
to approve with the cap of
The only
821,000.
application that's in front of you was for the 200,000 excavation.
No, I
The
think.
800,000 isn't.
We don't want this to come back.
No, actually, we recommended approval of the entire amount.
Yeah,
In this.
right, I mean, I don't think there's a need for it to come back. so-
Their original application was for the whole thing.
Mhm.
We dialed it back last time because they didn't have hard bids. But with this time, we are recommending approving the original application. which
What was the
was
total
the whole
cost?
thing.
It was projected
One,
cost?
it was, the projected cost of phase two is 821,000.
That was not including the well digging?
That
was not
does not,
including the
that,
well.
then 220 for the, 220 for digging the well.
So what's 880?
It's $1,041,000.
All right. Do you want to just approve, and should it
All to
exceed?
come out of general fund.
Should the estimate exceed that, they have to come back to us. How's that?
Can we delegate?
No, I think they should come back to you.
All right.
All right. So,
I'll make that motion
all right.
that we approve the complete application.
Second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. With that proviso. All right, the next one is a major renovation for the interior
Yeah,
roadway.
and I have an apology on this one. I was unable, technologically speaking, as was, I think, Paul. Tony had asked, when he reviewed it, had asked for an aerial view showing where the roads would be, and I got a very nice one from them, although I will note their key is reversed. The thing that says proposed roads coming out are actually the new roads and vice versa. That was actually pretty obvious from the drawing. It was a nice drawing. Our printers can't handle the colors required to print the drawing. But you guys hopefully all saw it, but it was attached to the email I sent. They're not paying a cent for this.
I know,
It's all
I had
coming from the
absolutely no
county.
issue with this myself.
I didn't really want to see the roads in color.
Yeah, that was the previous one, that's
Yeah,
not,
that's the previous
one.
no, there's a better one.
All right,
That I couldn't get to print.
all right.
Anybody have any discussion on this? Anything? Tony, you got anything?
I don't think I had, let's see. No.
It's very-
I thought
I mean,
the application was
very,
complete.
very complete application. I thought it was,
It's
it
also
gave us
being,
what we
it should be
needed to know.
mentioned, it's totally being funded by the county.
Yep,
I think the state, and the feds may actually be providing some money as well, I'm not sure.
makes it a lot easier. All right, motion to approve?
So move.
Second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Great stuff. Okay, that's a lot of paper off to carry.
Yep.
Okay. Fairview Cemetery. Yeah, okay, so we've got a couple deficits here.
Well, look at me, I just work here.
Don't look at you.
RJ, who's
We're-
starting with this? Joe, RJ?
Well, we'll answer any questions. I know Tony had some concerns as to how long it would take to pay back. Rich crunched those numbers.
Yeah, it'll take roughly 28 years for them to pay back the PM loan based on the 3-year average of the last 3 years worth of lot sales. They average about $9,800 a year in lot sales roughly. And they would be paying back 20% on top of the required 10% to pay back the loan. So at that rate, it would take about 28 years to pay back.
So that, the PM loan, the PM deficit's about 54 grand, is that right?
Yes.
And
just under
does that represent a reasonable contribution by the seminary to get this paid back, or?
That would be a 20% contribution, so you're looking at them paying about $2,000 a year.
And what's their net right now?
Their total lot sales for the year average about $10,000 over the last 3 years.
All right. And what's their total revenue?
Last year they had a short report from May through the end of the year,
Okay.
and their income for that year was actually $26,000. But $20,000 of that was for a donation specifically to repair a chapel that they had on the grounds.
Okay.
So I guess their overall income was around $6,500.
So we're talking about a cemetery with relatively limited means.
Yeah, they're
It would be,
struggling.
I mean, I just am pursuing this because it would be unreasonable to require a greater contribution in terms of their day-to-day operations.
I don't think that they could afford it because they run into a lot of social service burials too. And in those cases, a lot of times they're not receiving their going rate lot prices or their actual burial fee. So the county's only paying them a portion of what they should be getting. So I think that's also hurting them financially. But the town has been assisting them, not financially, but they're helping them put a new roadway in, stuff like that. So the town is aware of it. And another problem is it's located partially in the town and partially in the city of Amsterdam. So it's kind of something.
Not one of those.
Yeah.
All right. Tony, do they have to go get this blessed by court?
Yes.
Do they have papers prepared? I don't recall. Do they have papers prepared?
I
They
don't-
did. They had a petition.
Good.
Yeah, it has to be, the payment schedule has to be, and we have to separate. So far, we've only been discussing the
Yeah.
PM deficit, there's also the repayment of the
Right.
request.
Mhm.
And
I also crunched the numbers on the bequest. Right now, they're paying back $50 for every burial. To date, they've paid back like $1,500. In 2013, they paid back about $1,500. And based on their average of about 45 burials a year, most years. It would take them about 20 years to pay back that bequest, averaging out around 45 burials at $50 each.
So that bequest was to provide perpetual care to a specific plot.
No, actually,
What was it for?
it was for the general cemetery use and for her plot.
Right.
And for her plot.
Yes.
Okay, was the care to be given to the plot over and above the normal care of the cemetery?
It did, I don't think it was written that way. I
It
think
wasn't
it
written that
it
way.
basically
It's to
said
provide
perpetual care.
for the cemetery, including
Cemetery.
perpetual care for the else.
Okay, so it sounds like a general, all right, so I was asking only because if there was something special that was intended for the lot, the cemetery would have to fulfill that, notwithstanding its lack of income from the request. But that isn't the case, so we don't have to deal with that.
Yeah, it states that the income only therefrom to provide perpetual care for the cemetery, including perpetual care for the Els Miller plot.
Okay.
It's income only, so the 46,000.
46,000.
Should never have been, principal should never have been spent.
Right, that's a given. So how do you, I mean, I'll open
Well,
this up,
there's
especially
one
to you,
thing
Chris.
there's one thing about it here.
Yeah.
This attorney who sits on the board, who drew the will, and who permitted it to be paid over, that's one problem. The other problem is he's still on the board. This would not pass muster under the new well, it shouldn't pass muster under any
Yeah.
circumstance. But under the new not-for-profit law, this is definitely a conflict of interest if he's sitting on the board and he's being paid to draw the petition. Joe, you and Vince went to the meeting?
We did, and
What is this guy like, this attorney?
He claimed that he told them that it was restricted, and looking back at the minutes, the meetings, it said in there that other trustees admitted that he did indeed tell them that it was restricted. So I didn't know that before when we were reviewing the minutes, but I think he fulfilled his obligation.
One thing that seemed, one thing that seemed questionable to me was that the estate was not settled for 3 years. Is that
Yeah,
normal?
I'm not sure what
It
happened
seems
there.
like there's an appearance that they were sitting on it for a while.
Yeah, well, I don't know whether the guy is stupid or
We're not in executive session here.
incompetent.
Where's Richard when you need him?
I referred this to Pat Morphy when this.
Yeah, I mean, I saw that. Pat went along with it, but.
So-
He knew this attorney, actually.
well, that's
In
what I-
defense of estate attorneys, some estates take longer.
Yeah,
If there's real estate to sell,
That's true.
or, you know, weird assets
I
to
know,
dispose
I'm not
of.
going there.
So is this board member, to get to Chris's conflict of interest issue, is this attorney charging for the petition, or is he doing it pro bono? Do we know?
The letter said he was retained, Alan.
I didn't see any fees. I believe he's doing it pro bono, but I'm not sure.
I'm not sure.
I could find that
That
out.
would be a significant difference.
Yes, it would.
Why don't you find that out?
All right.
But that, I think that issue is separate and apart from the issue of either blessing the repayment scheme.
I agree.
And we may want to take up that issue in a different context. With respect to, if you're comfortable with this, Chris,
Yes.
just blessing or not blessing the repayment scheme and allowing them to go forward on their petition to the court with their recommendation. You want to move forward on that?
Yes, that'd be fine.
Okay, so do we have any issues with respect to the repayment plans as proffered? No? So I would, motion. I'll just motion to approve contingent on council's satisfaction with the paperwork in accord with discussion that we've had here.
I'll second that. Are we conditioning that on whether the attorney's getting paid or not?
I thought maybe we'd take that up.
Afterward. Okay. I'll second that motion.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, very good.
Abbott's Corners? Or Villanova?
Whatever's next on the,
Turn the page, Artis, sorry.
Abbott's.
Abbott's Corners.
That's columbarium.
Yes.
They're gonna get a return of 136 grand, 23% annualized. Anybody have any issues with this one?
And I have, you guys.
No, it's a no-brainer, you can't, no. I have a motion on the table. Go ahead, Tony.
Can I sing if I only had a brain at this
Yeah,
point?
right.
There was a picture of that there was a posting, the public posting. I didn't see any statement of when and how long it was posted.
You are correct about that. There is an issue with that, and I'm going to modify it. They didn't post it more than 60 days ago. So what I would like to do, if you guys are comfortable with this, is to, and I thought that we both put this in, I guess we didn't, is to ask that you approve it conditioned on them not doing anything until the full 60 days have passed. And yeah, I mean, we don't have to formulate a motion out of this. My idea was approve it now, let the 60-day period close. If they get no comments, they're good to go. If they do get comments, give us the discretion to determine whether they still have the green light or whether they have to do something else, or whether we have to come back to you.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Okay, you eagle-eyed people, thanks for showing us something. Okay. Villanova?
Do you have Cindy's supplemental memo on this? Is that, I think it is February 10th thing?
I don't know.
I did recirculate it.
Okay.
It's a 2-page thing.
Well, why don't you brief us?
So there were 2 issues left at the end of the last board meeting. This is a board member sold the cemetery 2 parcels of land without getting our approval, without recusing herself. This was pre-2013, still problematic. It looked over, the board had 3 issues at the last meeting. Issue number 1 was there were broker price opinions, not appraisals. We've got appraisals. The appraisals are consistent with the sale price. And by the way, we asked the appraisals to appraise as, right. We asked the appraisers to appraise as of 2009 when the transaction went down, not as of now, because prices might have gone up. The second issue was why was the seller allowed to keep the rent for the 3 years after the sale? That was the second issue. And the third issue, which was not a board issue, was one that arose that Tony noticed in the appraisals, was that one of the appraisals stated that the parcel was 9.3 acres, which is smaller than everyone thought this was somewhere between 10 and 10.5 acres. I can answer that one very easily. Cindy reached out to the county clerk's office, and the recorded maps do show a size of 10.33 acres if you add the 2 together, which is consistent with what one of the appraisers said, is consistent with what the cemetery originally said, and the second appraiser, there must just have been a typo in that one's report. When he added the 2 numbers, he had 5.8 instead of 6.8. So we are not concerned about that. On the question as to why she keep the rent, there really does not seem to be any good explanation for that. The answer seems to be because that's the resolution that they adopted.
Was that in the resolution?
Yes, they specifically discussed that and specifically said she gets to keep the rent.
So that was actually,
They
what
did
it really
consider
was
it.
consideration? Yeah.
I guess it was part of the consideration.
So they really paid more than 10 grand, they paid the rents. too.
Well, we don't know that for sure.
But they
I
got
mean,
some use to the land at the same time.
it's also possible that the lease would have been canceled on the sale and not assigned.
All right.
And
So for 3 years,
What was the amount that she?
the rent was like, shoot,
wasn't it $2 grand a year?
a little bit less.
Yeah, something like
The
that.
current rent is $19.50. I think the previous rent was a tiny bit less. I have the original package here somewhere.
That's in the ballpark.
But the only other thing I could think of is that they thought that she was the one who had agreed to this rent, so she ought to, that was her deal with them. So notwithstanding the sale, she ought to be able to keep it. I don't know, that's the best we can come up with. The person who is the president of the board now was not on board at the time,
And when did the rent payments go over to the cemetery?
2013, and they're still getting rent on it. The other thing is that Paul had a concern that the parcel looked like it was pretty close to some houses. We looked into that. There's only one house that's arguably close. It's within 200 feet, and it's not within 200 feet. Sorry, and unlike the current cornfield there, I'm presuming the current cornfield uses pesticides, because it's a cornfield. The cemetery doesn't treat the cemetery with pesticides in dealing with, or any of those kind of things in doing ordinary care. So, to the extent that was a concern, you're probably better off with once this becomes cemetery property. And in terms of how close you're gonna get to the houses, they're going to fill it up from the existing cemetery towards, so the areas adjoining where the houses are would be the last areas they would get to. And I think they intend to have some type of buffer. We can obviously
Well,
make
most
compact
localities have setback.
Right.
They would have to comply with anyway, since
Right.
this isn't purchasable land.
This is
Right.
the distance from the nearest grave to the well.
I'm not even sure the house has a well.
Hypothetically, if there were a well.
Yeah, I mean, that, as far as I know, health department
Probably not.
never,
It's 100, there's a
doesn't
100 foot.
Right, that's what you,
Oh, yeah, but that's up to the
Unless it's a
locality,
public water
of course,
well,
isn't it?
in which case it's 200.
okay.
I thought what I saw was that was below that. I may have misread.
But in any event, the house is, oh, we don't know what the well is.
We don't know.
Well, we have no reason to think it's that, I mean, there's nothing visible above ground heading towards the cemetery.
Well, why
to
don't
show
why
there
don't we
was
just,
one.
why don't we just caution the cemetery in writing,
That they have to
that
comply.
should they inter in this section, they must confirm the location of the well and abide by current,
Or
regulatory.
stay 100 feet away from the property line.
Whatever the current, restrictions are, both from the Department of Health and from local, the locality. I think it's a good thing to keep in mind.
Okay.
I think, again, this is an interesting, the 3 years of payment, we don't really know. We don't know what was going on. And, I don't know that it's
So it lowers the price to 4,000.
Potentially, but they also had, they got some value out of the land. It's 3 years, it's almost 6,000, right? It's like,
Right.
if we say,
Right, so it lowers it to like 4,200, something
Yeah.
like that.
yeah.
But that's assuming they would have gotten that rent.
That's, it's somewhat,
I mean, they are getting the rent now,
Yeah.
but the lease wouldn't, we don't know the terms of the lease. It might have terminated automatically on the sale.
you see, our problem with this is that it's very problematic. And, it doesn't really weigh on whether or not we think that the cemetery should keep the property. I mean, we're blessing it in a sense, but we can't, what's the cemetery? What are we gonna tell the cemetery to do at this point?
The only thing I can say is that they do have a new board president, and they're really trying to, they came to, we had a sort of a Cemetery 101 event in Buffalo over the summer. The new president came up, she approached us afterwards, she had 1,000 questions, she's really trying very hard to, professionalize the place to try to make it more of a, operate more in accordance with the way we would want it to be operating.
Yep.
And it wasn't them who did this.
Right, I mean, my question really is, what could the cemetery do? Assume this is a related
They
transaction.
can't go after the little old lady though.
Well,
They
that's the question.
authorized it.
Because, yeah, they made the deal.
That's what I mean, it's like, what would we do or the cemetery do at this juncture, right, they don't want to validate the deal, but they have to go after the former board member as having had a conflict,
Yeah, they could
and
do
somehow
that.
benefiting, that's pretty remote stuff, I mean.
Well, keep in mind that the board is making a recommendation to Supreme Court.
Yeah.
So the Supreme Court's gonna look at this, the recommendation to the court. Could ask the court to consider this in its decision.
But consider what, to go
I don't think
after-
the court could, do you think the court could actually require her to pay something as a condition of approving it? That seems, she's not a part of the
board anymore.
application.
The cemetery would be, it could direct the cemetery to take action. This was an insider transaction.
Well, and if it's null and void, then they gotta get the consideration back.
Right.
they get the consideration back, they lose the property,
Right.
which they actually, I mean, it's a benefit to the cemetery. I mean, I think that having the property is a good thing. They're getting rent right now, $2,000 a year. They will.
Well, if they're required to do anything, they make a new deal.
Right.
Well, or they could say, who needs this bureaucratic nonsense, we're giving up town, here's a cemetery.
Yeah, no, I'm not.
This is gonna fund the cemetery, not getting this land?
No, well, yes, actually it will, because they're almost out of land.
Well, our recommendation, I mean, Tony's
And-
right, this is a recommendation to the court. I mean, I think, to me anyway, I mean, I have no problem approving the purchase, all right? But making sure that the court's aware that this was a related transaction and that potentially some action could lie against the seller who is conflicting the board member. And that's it. I mean, you know, and then our erstwhile assistant attorney general will have to.
Is that where it goes?
That's where it
Yeah,
goes.
Bill, I have a problem with this. I mean, I have no problem with us noting that it was a related
That's what I'm
transaction.
noting, yeah.
And I have no problem noting that she got to keep the rent. I wouldn't go beyond that.
Okay, I think that's fine. I mean, I think,
Is this Nathan?
No, it's Bill Moldova.
Oh, okay.
you know what, and we just note that to Bill.
Yeah,
And Bill
in
can-
our letter to Bill, we'll just note these
Yeah.
things and he does with it what he deems
Yeah,
appropriate.
I think that's fine. You okay with that?
Yeah, can I talk to Bill?
Oh,
You can
no.
talk to Bill whenever you want.
No, you can't. You okay with that?
Yeah.
All right, so, motion to approve?
Motion to recommend.
Motion to recommend. You know, I'm usually the guy that says that. Motion to recommend approval to the court.
I'll move that.
Okay, second? Second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Yeah, we were nasty today. Nasty board.
We got this older generation.
Sorry, folks out there in DOSTD land.
They're old.
I'm with you on the attorney, Chris.
Let's not go there. Okay, really.
Let's not beat up on the little old ladies, though.
All right, okay, so, we have now, we have come to the end of our items on the agenda for discussion. So it is now my pleasure to open up this meeting to the folks in attendance, if they have anything they'd like to say to us. Dean?
I will. It's been a while.
Who might you be?
I would be Dave Fleming from the New York State Association of Cemeteries. Sorry, Mr. Mello. It's not going to be directed at you, so. No, just a couple of quick things.
Yeah.
First of all, thank you for working with the association on the regulations, and we look forward to working with you on other pieces. I think the collaboration is helpful and certainly helps folks get a comfort level on our side as to what you're trying to get at. So we appreciate the ongoing dialogue. It's very appreciative. With regard to the regulations, as they are proposed and to be submitted, an interesting question came up this week, and I thought I'd just bring that out there. You guys can think about it. Sure. Particularly under the pre-need sales piece, a question was raised as to whether or not if cemeteries were to follow the reg as proposed on pre-need sales, would that, in a sense, for lack of a better term, provide a safe harbor for cemeteries in their practice? That if they were to, for instance, if they were to start now with pre-need sales and put in 10% of the proceeds during the term of the installment contract, would that be okay?
Before the reg.
Before the reg takes effect. Okay. So that's an interesting question, which you'll need to think about, I'm sure, but I would like you to think about it.
Okay.
It's, I think it's, I've had more than one request about that, and it's the desire of our membership to do what they are supposed to do.
Right, okay.
And they want to have a comfort level with doing what they think they should be. So I want to do that about that. Also, just a reminder, the public affairs seminar for NYSAC is coming up in April. I think it's the 26th through the 28th. It's the 27th to 28th here in Albany, at the Albany Hilton. And obviously, everyone's invited to participate.
Wonderful.
Thank
In
you very
fact,
much.
the board will be having its meeting
Having its
that
meeting,
morning, the 27th.
I believe it's
over
at
the Hilton.
10 a.m.
Oh my God, not only are you dragging us down to the Hilton, but I can't take the train up? Come on.
I believe it's at that time. We'll have the information hopefully done in the next couple of weeks, and we'll make sure that everyone's provided a copy.
Great stuff, thank you.
Is it the Hilton? Where's the Hilton?
It's
Down
right
the hill.
down the hill,
Oh, down the hill.
Yeah.
Street.
right behind the city.
Yeah,
Hall.
yeah.
The old Crown Plaza.
I
You
think
don't
we
even
went-
have to drive.
Didn't we go there once?
Yes, last year.
Yeah, we anticipated attendance number.
We usually get just over 100, between 100 and 120.
Oh, there is something I did not mention, I should, and it has to do with the recently enacted Senate, number of the bill? 5101A. And I think that Lewis put out in his newsletter that we were developing policies / rulemakings, getting our act together in terms of how to administer the process. So we are doing that. We will be reaching out to interested parties once again in terms of developing policy or rulemaking. I'm not convinced we need a rulemaking even, it might be a matter of policy. We'll be discussing that with the board. We hope to move quickly, more quickly than we did on the regulations on this, but stay tuned, okay? And we'll be taking that up next week. Hopefully we'll have something circular by next week. All right, anything else? With that being taken care of, we will allow the motion to go into executive session for investigative litigated matters. I'll do that. Do I have a second? Second. All in favor, say aye. And then we'll take a 5-minute break and then thank you.
You can also just go
So moved.
Second? Everybody say aye? Aye. All right, can we put that back on so folks can hear us?
Next.
It's on. We're on now.
Oh, we're on now, okay. But before we do next meeting, we, two motions were made, and voted on. Tony, you want to read them out?
Yeah. Louis, can you hear me better? This is, all right. There was a motion, seconded and approved by the board in executive session to refer an order to the Attorney General's office against Whispering Maples Memorial Garden Inc., its chief executive officers and directors, and to take action, and referring it to the AG's office to take action consistent with the order that was signed.
Okay.
There's also a motion seconded and approved regarding Fairview Cemeteries.
Yes.
All right. And the motion was that the cemetery acted in violation of the request and spent the request in violation of the terms of the request. And the motion directed the repayment of the request along the terms previously agreed to and discussed in open session by the cemetery, and referred the matter to the Attorney General's office for further action consistent there.
Very good, thank you. All right, being no further business.
Date.
Oh, date.
We were going for the first week of March, weren't we?
Yes, we're gonna try.
You wanna do it the first week in March?
Yeah, that would be good if we could do it. But we would like to clear the decks, as we mentioned before, and, on the,
You could do it if you did it in the morning. Do it on the 5th in the morning again?
I cannot do the 5th.
okay?
Well, we could do it,
I'll do any day, I'm fine, so I will make, any day is fine with me.
could we do it on a Friday morning? March 6th? Paul?
I believe
He's
so.
busy, he's looking.
Yeah.
Busy.
See if we get a kick out of these, because an appointment book is so much faster.
Don't have that discussion.
Way back in
Did
the
you
day.
notice when I called you this morning, it wasn't my phone? Voice phone.
No, I didn't notice that.
Oh, I think, well, maybe you can't because of you, I don't have cell phone.
That's fine.
Oh, really? Well, here,
So Helen
that's
said to
good.
me.
10:30?
March 6th.
What's 6? 10:30, March 6th?
Sounds good.
You don't want to do it any earlier, do you?
I'd love to if we
Should we
could.
do it at 10? Maybe can't get it any earlier?
It's tough.
Oh, you mean earlier in the morning?
What's that,
No.
no, okay, 10:30.
This is my cell phone, so
This is your cell phone.
I'm restricted to like,
Can we go off,
Hey.
can we adjourn?
oh, that's right, I'm sorry. Motion to adjourn. Second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 This is your cell phone on drugs, any questions?